east of Route 23, about 8 miles north of Paintsville, Kentucky.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I worked with him as a DJ guest for about 4 years. Right. Yeah. That's the one. That's some of the ones that we used to have. Used to have to do all those things live. You know, before you videoed.
Yeah.
Now you can video them and mail them to the station. We did all those live. At one time there we had 10 television shows.
Huh.
I took the second group out, which was the Timberlanders, and we alternated in a little bit. I had a route down through Mississippi, Jackson, Tupelo, Jackson, Tennessee, Chattanooga, and they'd come up through West Virginia for 6 months, and I'd come up through their route and they'd go out through mine. It was a lot of fun, but it was a lot of work.
It was all TV?
Yeah, we had to make each one of them 6 o'clock in the evening in person. Couldn't video.
You'd go to a different city each night?
We had to go to a different city each night. We'd go, well, we'd start, we'd leave Nashville on Monday morning and go to Chattanooga for 6 o'clock live show. And then we'd go on to Knoxville on Tuesday, on into Bluefield, West Virginia on Wednesday, into Huntington, West Virginia on a Thursday, all the way up in Clarksburg, West Virginia on Friday, and all the way back in for the Opry on Saturday night. Plus, we worked the date out as far out as we could get from each television show every night, you know. Talking about work. It's about 3,000 miles a week, just television shows.
Gee whiz.
Yeah. Plus our personals, as far out as we could get after the program, you know, which would be 40, 50 miles out. We'd work a day in the area of each television show every night somewhere. It was a lot of fun. Yeah. A lot of hard work.
See, with that kind of schedule, they'd have time to do personal appearances with doing the TV.
We found the time, but it kept you on the ball. I mean, you didn't let any grass grow under your feet, that's for sure. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it all. Sure did. Spent a lot of time with those fellas on these highways. There's good guys to work with.
Was that the group with Red Rector and
That
Jim
was
Smoke?
my Timberliners,
Yeah.
yeah. That's the original Timberliners, Red Rector, Jim Smoke, Joe Phillips. And I worked the fellow we called Little Darling for a while in my group. He was a stand-up comedian, you know, and he did a dance. He's pretty good.
Didn't he also work some with Flatt and Scruggs, or did he?
Yeah, he worked with Flatt and Scruggs, and after he left them, he come with me for a while. And Tater Tate, he worked with us too, you know. It was a lot of fun. It was interesting. But I've enjoyed it all. Started in '54, I had my first record release. It just happened to do good. So it got me in trouble. That's what I tell everybody. I worked with one of the all-time greats before I ever recorded for 5 years, Bradley Kincaid. Have you heard of Bradley Kincaid? The folk singer. He was a great folk singer of our times, or I thought he was. He did a lot of the mountain ballad stuff, you know, and folk songs. He did a lot of research. I did some research, and I have about 7 albums of old folk songs.
Really? Ones that you got through Bradley? Or?
No, I did. Well, I did some of Bradley's, but I did some research on a lot of them, like the Knoxville Girl. I always took it for granted that the Knoxville Girl was wrote about Knoxville, Tennessee, but wrong. I have the original version of it that I recorded for Stardate Records, and it originated in a little town in Knoxville, England.
Oh.
Yeah, it was supposed to have been a very true song, but that's where it originated. A little town in Knoxville, England. Now they have a new Knoxville girl, but I have the original version.
Yeah.
It got a lot of plays throughout the country, and things like that was interesting to find in the research. I don't know what I'm doing smoking these cigarettes. Jerry told me I better quit these things. I don't know if I'm just pretending I'm smoking now, Jerry. Me. You asked me what I built this for. Now, this is my dog house. Yeah, that's my dog house. I always come here, when I get my dog house. It's a pretty good size, too. You get 2 or 3 dogs in there. I had about four singles on that song. Prisoner song. I rearranged it a little bit when I did. It was originally a walk package.
Is that the tempo on it?
In fact, that's where I got the name of Hylo from. This one particular song. I worked an early morning radio program with a disc jockey up in Middletown, Ohio. The name of Smoky Ward. You've heard of Smoky Ward, I suppose. He used to be at Renfro Valley. And we did a live show on the radio station in Middletown, Ohio, 5 o'clock in the morning. I'd get up and drive about 50 miles in order to make that show down there. And one morning I did the Prisoner song. And he was sitting in control. He said, from now on, there'll be no more Frank. He said, it'll be Hylo. So that's where I got the name of Hylo Brown, this Prisoner song. So I talked it over with my A&R man when I signed the contract with Capitol Records about the name. He said, let's use that name. That's a good catchy name. So we went ahead. So I've been Hylo ever since. We got an engineer back of us somewhere there. I don't know what he's doing now.
Have a seat over here?
Yeah, we might as well. Sit down and relax. I love the outdoors.
Gary, what?
Same here.
Sure was.
Excuse me, let me interrupt just a minute. What does that fader flashing on here mean? Anything? Fader? It's not now, so I think we're all right.
If you don't mind, let me take a look down.
Sure.
See what. I see what Gary looks like. I know what I look like. That should come in pretty good, shouldn't it?
I think so.
I think so. Be all right.
Okay.
Carry
Now,
it.
where you want us?
I'm going to take a nap.
You're going to take all right. Go ahead and take a nap.
All right, you guys are in business.
Gary, you just go ahead and take a nap, and we'll just sit here and reminisce. Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
You were born and raised right close to here, weren't you?
Born and raised in an old house that's set right out there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I left here when I was about 17 years old.
Yeah.
This was always home. I came back 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I think I'll stay this time. I've been gone for a long time, but I enjoy the country, and I just love good old natural living.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sure do.
Is there much music around in this area when you were growing up?
There wasn't too much. There was a few people that played guitars and banjos and fiddles, and when I'd see one going up the road, I'd follow him just as far as I could see him, you know. I'd love to get a hold of his guitar. When I was a kid, you know, I'd see a guy going down the road with a guitar picking it, you know, and I'd take out after him.
Yeah.
Try to get him to let me play that guitar. You know, back when I was growing up, when I was a kid, a fiddle and a banjo was called a band, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a band. If there was a fiddle and a banjo, that was a band. And I used to just love to get a hold of an instrument. Finally, I'm about 12 years old, I believe, and my daddy bought me my first guitar. Paid $3 for it. It's a little Martin guitar, too.
Huh.
One of those small Martin guitars. Bought it off from a fellow by the name of Ab Fairchild over a place we call over Sycamore, over on the 23 highway. Country music highway now over there, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was real proud of that. I kept that guitar until it fell apart. Sure did.
What got you interested in music to start with?
I just love music from the time I was big enough to hear it and remember that. I just love music. Of course, I started writing songs when I was about 15.
Really?
And so I wrote 2 or 3 songs. But I didn't know what to do with them at that time, you know. But I found out a little later what to do with them, you know. And I used to sit on my front porch and learn the chords. I'd get me a chord book and learn chords on a guitar. And then there was a guy the fellow that my dad bought the guitar from, he taught me quite a few chords on the guitar. And then I got some chord books. And I started learning a few chords. Finally got up to 3 chords. Yeah. But it was a lot of fun coming up, and I love music, and I wrote a song in later years. Well, I worked with one of the all-time great folk singers of our time, Bradley Kincaid. That was the first work that I ever done professionally. I worked with him for 5 years. I worked with him till he retired, and he taught me a lot of the tricks and the trades in the business. And he was a great guy to work for. His word was his bond.
Yeah.
He was a great guy. Bradley passed away a couple of years ago. He lived to be 96 years old. Yeah. He retired while I was working with him.
How old were you when you went to work with him?
When I went to work with him, I was 20 years old. I worked with him 5 years. I started writing songs more after I was on the road. I got more experience, you know, things that you'd see and lines you'd hear. You'd pick up the lines that you would hear and you'd write from it. And I wrote this song, Lost to a Stranger. And Bradley suggested that I take it to Nashville. At that time, I took the song to Nashville with the intention of trying to get Kitty Wells interested in recording it, which was the queen of country music, Kitty is, and she was real popular back in '54, and she still is one of the finest people, Kitty and Johnny Wells, that I know. I went to the radio station there. A friend of mine was a disc jockey in Nashville there. The radio station was in the old Maxwell House Hotel. I think that was before your time.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people remember the old Maxwell. Excuse me, I got a bug in my mouth. What'd you say, Mike? Want some water? No, I'll just let him walk down. That's an old one, ain't it? But anyway, I took the song down with the intention of getting Kitty to record it if she liked the song. I figured that she would, you know, she liked it. An artist has got to like a song before they'll record it, you know. But anyway, a friend of mine, Joe Allison, that was a disc jockey at the radio station, also was working for Central Songs out on the West Coast. He was pitching a lot of songs for Central Publishing Company at that time. And he was on the air, and I went into the station. I had a little dub that I'd made, you know, just me and my guitar, the song. And he said, well, I'll be off the air in about 15 minutes here, he said, and we'll call out to Kitty's house, and we'll take the song out there and see if she'd be interested in recording. But in the meantime, while we were waiting for Joe to get off the air, the A&R man of Capitol Records came in the studio there and left a new release on Fairland Husky. And in fact, I think that was Fairland's first release. And asked Joe to give us some spins for him. So he got off the air. He said, well, he said, while you're here, he said, I want you to listen to a song. And he played the little acetate that I'd taken down, you know, for Ken. Ken Nelson was the A&R man for Capitol Records at that time. And he said, well, he said, I'll tell you. He said, I like that song. And he said, who wrote this song? And I told him I did. Well, he says, play that again. Let me listen to it. Here comes my pet right here. So he played the song again. He said, well, you wrote it? I said, yeah. He said, well, who's singing it? I said, I am. And we had told him what we plan on doing with the song, you know. And he says, well, what's wrong with you doing that for Capitol Records? And I said, well, there wouldn't be anything wrong, but you must be kidding. No, he said, I'm not kidding. He said, I'm not kidding. And I about fell over then. So we got together and talked about it. And he said, I'll sign you for a contract. I'll record you tomorrow. I said, that sounds real great. He booked a session in the studio, the old Castle Studios there in Nashville. It used to be on Church Street. And
in the two-lane hotel?
Yeah. And so, Sissy, go over there. You're just a big pet. Go on over there. You can't talk. But anyhow, he set up a recording session for 2 o'clock the next day and called the musicians that we was going to use. And we went in the studio the next day at 2 o'clock, and I did a session, which is 4 songs.
Yeah.
And at 8 o'clock that night, we were finished with the session, and I'd signed an 8-year contract with Capitol Records.
Huh.
So I was floating on cloud 9. I was having to pinch myself to see if it was true, you know. But the first release I had was Lost to a Stranger, it did real well for me throughout the country. It played on a lot of pop stations back in those days, and it was a pretty big record for me.
You didn't have a band at that point.
I didn't have a band at that point. It was just I organized a group shortly after. Well, after the song started to hit, I organized a group. My first group, I called them the Buckskin Boys. Yeah, and I got a job then after the record started getting plays all over the country. I got a job at the world's original Jamboree in Wheeling, West Virginia. I worked there 5 years. I had two 30-minute shows there every Saturday night. I'm sure you're familiar with the Jamboree in Wheeling, West Virginia. I had 5 good years there, and we worked a lot of the New England states at that time. Their station would beam direct into the New England states and Canada, you know.
Yeah.
You could go 1,000, 1,500 miles up through the New England states, and that station would boom in just like a local station up there and over into Canada. We did a lot of work up through there. After I left there, well, I went with Flat and Scruggs. I went to Nashville, and so we stayed there for years. You know, I worked with them about 4 years.
As a solo?
As a solo, yeah. And they were real busy at the time. They had the Martha White television shows, you know, and of course later on they added 5 more, and I took the second unit out. But I had a good relationship with those fellows. They were fine people to work with. What they told you, you could depend on it. Yeah.
Did you do any recording with Flat and Scruggs?
Yes, I did some tenor singing on some of their recordings, and they also helped me on a song that I recorded for Capitol, Stonewall.
Oh, really?
We did a trio on that. Yeah, they helped me with that song there. And, we kind of worked with each other, you know, when we could. You know, back then a lot of times, if you were on one label and someone was on another label and you wanted to record together, you had to get permission from the record companies, you know.
Yeah.
Which we did, you know. If the occasion arose that we wanted to do something together, you'd have to get permission from you, which you still do, you know, as far as that's concerned. But they're pretty strict then too. I see my banjo picker out there. Well, he's getting ready to play golf, I think. What he's getting ready to do.
You've mentioned...
You want to come over here and say hello, Mike? Come over here and, well, smile and show these guys your pretty teeth. Well, hand them here. I'll show them to them. Come over here. There's my right-hand man here.
Get in close, a little closer to him, Mike.
Mike
Stand
Daniel.
around behind between him and sort of hunker down
Get
a
over
little
here
bit.
where they
Now
can
you're
see
talking.
Mike. Yeah, that's
Really
fine.
good.
Yeah. You want to smile now? He's my right-hand man. This guy's been with me quite a while now.
Yeah.
He knows, just about knows when I'm going to breathe. He's a good boy. Him and Terry and Kerry. I heard him up there in the front lawn there a while ago. Y'all was arguing about your dads, wasn't you? Yeah. They was arguing which one of their dads was which one of your dads was the fastest. You said, and you told him, you said, well, my dad was so fast that he could shoot a bow and arrow and run out there and catch the arrow before it hit. Kerry said, that's nothing. He said, my daddy could shoot a rifle. He said he was so fast he could run out there and catch the bullet before it hit. And old Mike eased around with his hands in his pocket. He said, that's nothing. He said, my daddy works for the government. He gets off at 5 o'clock every day. He's always home by 4:30. He don't like me to tell that on him, Mike don't.
You were talking earlier about Bradley Kincaid.
Yeah.
What sort of things did you do with Bradley during the 5 years you worked with him?
I had organized a little group at that time, and we were his band, and I sang tenor on a lot of Bradley's old songs. And we had mandolin, guitar, fiddle, and bass. And of course Bradley was the soloist. He sang all the old folk songs and the mountain ballads. He had some good songs. And I recorded some with him, and sang tenor on most all of his recordings while I was with him.
Yeah.
He was a great guy to work for. I mean, he was one of these kind of people that was all business. But you could depend on what he said.
Yeah.
You certainly could. He's a fine fellow.
You mentioned that he taught you some of the tricks of the trade.
He sure did.
What sort of things did he work with you on?
He taught me to always deal with legitimate people. That was one of the things I took his advice on that. And he pointed out a few things to me that ordinarily I would have probably went into blindfolded. I guess I was very lucky to have worked with him, and I took his advice. You know, a lot of people might ask for advice, but a lot of people won't take advice, you know. But I did. I took his advice because he was very much of a businessman. And, I enjoyed the whole 5 years I was with him.
I noticed in this Grand Ole Opry song you wrote, you mentioned Bradley Kincaid in the song.
Yeah, I mentioned Bradley in the song. I wrote that song back when, the folks that I mentioned in the Grand Ole Opry song was active then on the Grand Ole Opry. That was back when Uncle Dave Bacon and a lot of the old timers were still on the Opry, you know. And at that time, so it was never recorded. I never recorded it. Years later, I taught the song to Jimmy Martin, and he was the first fellow that recorded the Grand Ole Opry song. And it done real good for Jimmy. In fact, it was in the Circle Beyond Broken album. You remember that? Oh, yeah, it was in that album. It done real good. Then they used some of the song in the movie W.W. and the Dixie Dance King.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I haven't watched that movie in a while. I wonder if they're going to play that anymore.
Who all was in the group when you played with Bradley?
When I played with Bradley, a fellow by the name of Slim McCoy, Alonzo Fox, Russ Williams, and myself.
Mm-hmm. Were they all fellows from right around in this area? Or?
They were locally, yes. I was inspired quite a bit by Slim, the fellow who played fiddle. He was quite a guy.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. He inspired me a lot. He says, "Don't give up." He was working in a factory at that time. You know, he said, "Don't you give up." He said, "Follow this record up," and I did. So it made me a living.
Yeah.
I didn't make too many $1 million. I'm working on my second million now because I missed the first one.
Was that the first band that you had put together? The one
Yeah,
backing up Bradley?
That was the first band that put together. Only 2 of us living now.
Yeah.
What have you got there, Sissy?
I thought maybe you might want to wash that bug down after
That'd be
all.
fine. Do you like a cup of coffee?
No, I'm fine.
You sure you're fine? Okay. But I'd like a cup here. Thank you, honey. That's my daughter there. That's my baby daughter, Sheila. It's a little chilly out here. I'm freezing today.
You want me to get you a jacket?
No, that's all right.
You mentioned you were about 15 or 16 when you started writing songs.
About 15, 16. My first song, I believe I was 15 years old. And a lot of times, you know, you think they're not any good. Thank God, a lot of my songs have been accepted in the publishing companies, and that really inspired me when Lost to a Stranger started. I thought I could write, and I have a lot of songs recorded by other artists that I appreciate too. That did some fine job. In fact, I got two of my songs is in two albums by two different groups. Now, they're #1 songs, Waited As Long As I Can, on both albums, and they're both released at the same time. Tony Rice and The Third Time Out had two albums out at the same time, and the Waited As Long As I Can is #1 pick on both the albums. Yeah, I appreciate it. They both did a fine job on Waited As Long As I Can. I thought they'd done a wonderful job on it. In fact, I think that it's getting to be about #3, I believe. Well, that's the count I had of it.
Yeah. Do you remember what your first song was that you wrote? Did you ever do anything with it?
I never did. I have never got up enough nerve to try that. It was kind of messed up.
Really?
There'd had to been a lot added and a lot took from, I guess. But I made a stab at it anyway, as the old saying is, you know. Yeah.
What sort of schedule did the Buckskins have as far as work?
They all worked on regular jobs. We did most of our work on the weekends then, in those days, and each one had a regular job.
So y'all weren't able to do the music full time at that point? Or?
No, we didn't do it full time at that point. Until we started to work with Bradley, and then we went full time with him.
Yeah. Did Bradley help you out any with the songwriting?
Bradley and I wrote one song together. It's called "Get Lost You Will."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd come up with an idea. I said, how would this sound for a song? We was working a fair up in the state of Ohio. We was working a fair up there. And I heard someone say, "Get lost." And I said, how would this sound for a song title, Bradley? It's "Get Lost You Will." He said, well, let's go around here somewhere and write it. So we went around back to the bleachers and wrote it.
I think when Kerry was here last time, he'd asked you about a song that you and Carter Stanley put together.
Yes. Gosh, that's been a long time ago. We wrote that in the dressing room of the old Rymlem Auditorium there in Nashville at the Opry. I come up with the title, "I'll Treasure Your Last Love Letter." Carter said, let's go in the dressing room and write it. So we went in, wrote the song in about 20 minutes. You know. And at that time, I was working some with Monroe. And, Carter was going to leave and go back, and him and Ralph, I guess, was going to get together and organize. And so I took his place and worked with Monroe till Monroe found a guitar man. And he said they was going to record it, and if they did, I never did. I don't
think they ever did.
I don't believe they ever did. But anyway, Carter and I wrote that song, "I'll Treasure Your Last Love Letter." Yeah.
Did you ever do anything with it?
I never have. I've never recorded it. It's like a recitation that I laid back 20 years ago that I wanted to record then and never, and I dug it out the other day. I dug this thing out the other day, and it's kind of interesting, and I'm going to record it. I think in July.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna record it. Sheila,
Yeah.
where'd Sheila go?
I'm
Mike,
here.
would you get my briefcase out of the back of my car there?
Yeah.
And it's a recitation. I'll try it out on you.
Okay.
We'll see what Carrie thinks about you. No, it's published.
All right.
Yeah, I published it 20 years ago.
The early sessions you did for Capitol, you didn't use your band on?
No, we used studio musicians there, yeah.
Was that your idea or Ken Nelson's?
That was Ken's idea because I didn't have a band at that time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, hon. I dug this out, Terry, the other day, and I found it. In fact, I forgot that I laid it back. I sure had. It's a recitation. What it is. So I talked to the record people here a couple of weeks ago, and on the phone. They said, why not do that?
It's one that you wrote?
Yeah, it seemed, I don't know, maybe it's all right, and maybe it isn't.
Try it on.
We'll try it.
Yeah.
I'll try it on you.
Okay.
Yeah, look, okay. There was a man who was successful and gifted with wealth, and he believed in no God, but only in himself. He had just built a new mansion, and oh, it was a handsome estate. He was given a big feast of dedication, and all of his friends were there to celebrate. They were gathered around the table and just about to dine when the rich man spoke up and said, how about a prayer for all of these things that are mine? He called to his servant, hey, you over there, how about delivering us a little prayer? They all laughed in a mocking kind of way. But the old servant bowed his head like he get to it.
It'll work out
It's been
fine.
so long. I laid this back 20 years ago. Okay, let's go from the top.
Sure.
Okay, we cut that out. All right. I'm going to have to. I used to remember this by heart, but I'm going to read it again. This is what you call an idiot sheet. There was a man who was successful and gifted with wealth. He believed in no God, but only in himself. He had just built a new mansion, and oh, it was a handsome estate. He was given a big feast of dedication, and all of his friends were there to celebrate. They were gathered around the table and just about to dine when the rich man spoke up and said, how about a prayer for all of these things that are mine? He called to his servant, hey, you over there, how about delivering us a little prayer? Well, they all laughed in a mocking kind of way, but the old servant bowed his head, and these words he began to pray. Lord, I know I'm not the man I ought to be, but I just pray, Lord, that you'll find it in your heart to forgive me. It's so hard to keep from breaking your golden rule. Lord, be merciful to me, a fool. Lord, sometimes I say things that hurt my friends, I know. But it's written that harsh words never to heaven go. So help me to bridle my tongue and not use it as an evil tool. Lord, be merciful to me, a fool. Father, I thank you for the many blessings you've given me, and I'll be so happy when I reach eternity. Help me, O Lord, to fight life's sinful do. Please continue, Lord, to be merciful to me, a fool. A silence filled the room when the servant said amen, and no one was laughing as before the prayer began. The rich man got up, walked out into the nighttime cool, bowed his head in tears and said, Lord, be merciful to me, 'cause I am the fool. You see why I've never done that? I can't.
Good. Good.
That's the only recitation I could never do without choking up. I don't know why.
That's good. That's a good recording.
But that's the music business, I guess, the entertainment business.
Yeah.
It goes along with it, don't it?
Is there anything in particular that inspired you to write that?
Well, yes. Things I'd just rather not discuss, you know, why I wrote it.
Yeah.
I might say I had a little experience along that line, you know. But I can never get to it.
No.
Yeah. Maybe I can when I get ready to record it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you get associated with Flat and Scruggs?
They called me and asked me if I'd like to come to work with them. And at the time, my agreement was up at the jamboree there, and so I went down and talked with them. We got together and worked out things. That's how I went to work with him. Lester called me.
That was about 1959, 58?
I was in
60?
59.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You played the Newport Folk Festival that year, didn't you?
Earl and I worked that, the folk festival there in Newport, Rhode Island. That was one of the highlights of my career.
Really?
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. I sure did. In fact, at that time, that's the biggest crowd I ever worked for. There was people just as far as you could see standing through the field, just as far as you could see. I really enjoyed that. And
How did that come about? Was that something through Flat and Scruggs that worked out that way?
right. At that time, Lester wouldn't fly, so Earl was going to fly up there, and he got. In fact, we were working up there, and he knew where I was working, and he called up there and said he would fly up if I'd work it with him, and we did. We
So
worked
it's
it
just
with
the
him.
two of you?
Yeah, well, the Timberliners, I had the
Mm.
Timberliners with me, and that's how that come about. See, Lester used to, he wouldn't fly. I don't know. I think Earl finally talked him in flying to the West Coast and back a few times.
Yeah.
He told me one time we was working a drive-in theater over in West Virginia, I believe it was, yeah. And was watching a pilot, this little airport over here, we was watching them go in and out. And Flat and I was walking around the drive-in theater over there. I said, Flat, I said, I knew he didn't like to fly, or you couldn't get him in the plane. I said, how would you like to be up there with that fella now? He looked at me and he said, had a Flat smoke. We used to make bets on which one could quit smoking, you know. He always carried a little box of matches in his shirt pocket. Come out with it. He said, you see that little box of matches? I said, yeah. He said, I'll come just as nigh being up there now as I will later. We made a bet one time, you know. He'd love to quit smoking, but he couldn't, you know. We'd bet $20 at a time. I never will forget this. We were playing a high school auditorium up in Ohio. And we'd made a $20 bet. The one that smoked first owed the other $20. So we went for about 2 weeks. Of course, I was slipping around smoking, so was Flat, you know. But anyway, just before we was getting ready to go on stage, Flat and Josh and Jake was on that side of the stage. Me and Paul and Curly and Earl was on this side of the stage. And it's a big draw curtain back here, and all of a sudden I seen that curtain, you know, in the back of it. Josh was running around that curtain, you know, and he come around there and he told me, he says, slip over there right quick. He said, Flat's got one fired up. He said, you can't see him for the smoke. And I went around the back of that curtain, went over there and walked up more. There he stood. He always kept that pick on that finger and thumb, you know. Sitting there with that cigarette and them picks. That cigarette, man, it looked like it was that long, you know. Smoke just blowed. And I walked right up behind him, tapped him on the back. He turned around, he saw me, and he throwed that cigarette and stomped it. He said, I'll kill Josh Graves. He knew Josh that had to run over there and told me. He said, I'll kill him. I said, no, don't make no difference. I said, where's my 20 at? Man, we used to have a lot of fun with that smoking business, you know. Then we got to the point where he said, oh, I tell you what, he said, I'll chew a little if you will. I said, we can't chew riding on a bus. It'll make me sick. Well, he said, we'll try it. We tried it one time. My brother had to stop the bus. And the rest is history. Had a great time, though, with those fellas. They're good guys to work with.
You said you were with them for about 4 years?
Yeah.
How did you get connected with Red Rector and Jim Smoke? And
We called Red when I organized the Timberliners. He was one of the original Timberliners, and we called him. He was living in Knoxville. Him and Tater Tate both was. Jim Smoke was living in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We called him. And Joe Phelps, he lived in Clarksville, Tennessee. And we got those 4 people together, myself. And that's how that come about. Red, I miss Red a lot. He was a good guy to travel with. He was a good guy to work with. Red was. He was fine. Well, they all were, as far as that's concerned. But Red, he was something special. He was a real fine fella. Most of the time, you don't find a good guy and a good musician all in one. But just kidding, guys. That doesn't mean a word of it. Love all of you. Watch Mike cut them eyes over here at me.
So that group of the Timberliners was before you did your solo work with Flat and Scruggs, or was that afterwards?
That was
Or
after.
during?
That was after.
Yeah.
Yes. That's while I was still working with them, but that's when I organized. That's when Martha White added 5 more shows. Yeah, and I took what you call was called the second unit out from Martha White. Like I said, we alternated a little bit, you know, here and there.
Yeah.
I'd go up through West Virginia on their route, and they'd go down through Mississippi on my route. That was a lot of fun to get to change, you know,
Yeah.
running the same routes all the time. Of course, that was back, you know, when we had to do them live. You couldn't video and mail them into the station. We've done all those stations live. It's about 3,000 miles a week. Each route was, you know.
Did the Timberliners have a bus to travel in, or?
No, we traveled in station wagon, you know, station wagon and vans. That's what we traveled in. Flat and Scruggs had a bus. But we made out fine. When I first started out in a 39 Ford station wagon with a bass fiddle tied on top of it. You'd talk about Cadillacing them down the road, man. We was jammed up in there, about 5 of us, in the station wagon with a bass fiddle tied on top of it. Now that was the rough days.
Yeah.
I appreciate the younger generation now coming up, because they sure got it a little better than we had. We helped pave the road, though, thank goodness. And there's a lot of good young bluegrass pickers in the business right now. There's some first-class musicians, and I'm sure glad to see that. Certainly hope they carry it on. Yes, sir.
Wonder how many of today's musicians would go through the hardships that.
It'd be rough, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But it was an experience. It was a good experience. It's a lot of hard work. As the old-fashioned saying is, it took a lot of guts to hang in there. Thank God it paid off. You know.
Was the money very good back then, or it sounded like
wasn't.
you worked a lot?
It was not like it is now. No, money was. You were very lucky. You were very lucky to make $600-800 a day. You know, then, with a whole group.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were lucky. And nowadays, I mean, that's kind of peanuts. You know.
Yeah.
Of course, that went a long ways too.
Yeah.
I can remember back when I was a kid growing up, my daddy worked in the coal mines for a while, for loaded coal for 15 cents a ton. There used to be a coal mine over in a place we call Offutt, Kentucky, just across the big sandy river down there. He loaded coal for 15 cents a ton. And he got out of the mines and moved to Ohio and went to work in a defense plant up there. And that's when we left this country. I left when I was naturally I went with my folks, because I was still single. And I was 17 years old when they moved to Ohio. But he did, I remember when he loaded coal for 15 cents a ton. You can imagine that. And they were lucky in those days to load like 5 ton a day. And load it with a pick and shovel back in there down on your knees, you know what I mean? Of course, it's a lot of difference now. I mean, they pay good wages in these mines anymore. They tell me, I was never in one. I know my dad was a coal miner for a while.
Yeah.
Back when I was growing up, things were rough. I mean, they weren't any work anywhere. I mean, you were lucky to find a job, you know, at $1 a day in those days.
It was Depression times.
That was back in the Depression in the 30s.
Yeah.
Sound like I'm pretty old, huh?
After after your contract with Capitol expired, you went with Starday Records.
I went with Starday for 10 years, you know.
How did you get associated with them?
With Starday, well, my contract was up with Capitol Records, and I had talked to Don Pierce, the fellow that owned Starday Records at that time, and he said I would certainly like to have you if you're not going to sign with anyone else. And so that's the way it come about. So I signed with them, and I had 10 good years with them, and they still have stuff in press, I believe, on me. Of course, they bought Starday out, you know.
Yeah.
And another company has it, but I enjoyed working with Don Pierce. He was a fine man, and I did a lot of recording for them. I said some of the things I don't think has ever been released that
Really?
I've done for them. Yeah, but I enjoyed it. Since then, I what you call freelanced a little bit to different record companies, KARC Records and Adoram Records. I've been on about 6 or 7 different labels. King's Music City, 6 or 7 different labels since I was with Starday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long did you keep the Timberliners going?
We, before I really disorganized, about 4 years. So I went then as a single again, which as I've been working as a single since, off and on. Now I have people that I can get. I have people that I can get if we need a band, but I have one guy here that's one of the finest banjo pickers that ever hit the road, and I have a couple more people that live down in Nashville that they can come anytime, you know. But like I say, I've sort of semi-retired, and kind of that old guitar gets kind of heavy once in a while, you know. Mike, he'll put a spark on me once in a while. I have to go when he says go.
How long were you living in Nashville?
I lived there probably 30 years, I
Yeah.
guess.
You moved down there when you started
Yes,
with Western Earl?
yeah, I moved there when I started with Platt and Scruggs. Yeah. That's the world's greatest country music show there in Nashville, Tennessee, the
Yeah.
Grand Ole Opry. Some fine folks there. I came up through quite a bit of it with all of the folks around there at the Opry. Got some fine friends there.
Yeah.
We went to work there when the old Roundham Auditorium was still booming. I've enjoyed it all. The whole time I was there. I like it in Nashville. We decided that we'd come back to the old home place. You know, if you're born and raised at a place till you're 17 years old, that's home.
Yeah.
Regardless of where you've been in this world, it's still home. I'm just an old country boy. Just like to live a good, peaceful life, you know. I love it here on the farm. I guess this is where I'll stay for a while.
How much ground do you have here?
There's about 150 acres
Really?
of it, yeah.
Real peaceful back up in here.
Yeah, it is. It's very peaceful. I got a holler, called a holler. It goes up to there about a mile. my dog and me walks that about every day. Real peaceful solitude, man. It's something else. It's something I love. I love nature. I love the outside. I'm an outdoor guy. Yeah.
Carrie, is there anything particular you want us to zero in on?
Because last time we just touched on, I asked Hylo a question or two about the Stanley Brothers. And I asked him, get into whether or not you really had any involvement with the Stanley Brothers at all, Hylo.
Yeah, just been on festivals together.
Okay.
Yeah, we can. We can talk about that. If you want to, yeah.
Sure, yeah.
You can go ahead and ask me if you want to.
Guess I think maybe you mentioned on the other video that you work with the Stanley Brothers at the Newport.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we work. I've worked quite a few festivals that the Stanley Brothers have been on, and I've been on. They were on the folk music festival there in Newport, Rhode Island, the first time we worked it up there. Carter and Ralph. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure I'm right about this, but I think the first two bluegrass festivals, I think, and I don't know of any before that was promoted over in Richmond and Roanoke, Virginia, by Carlton Haney. And I believe Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys and Carter and Ralph Stanley, Don and Red, Reno and Smiley, and myself, I believe we were the first people that ever tried one of the festivals.
Yeah.
With Carlton. Carlton did the promotion on over there, but we did them in auditoriums over there, but they turned out real good. As far as I know, the Stanley Brothers and Bill and Don and Red and myself, I believe we were the acts that was on the first two bluegrass festivals was ever started. And I believe I'm right on that. I never knew of any more, and Carlton said he didn't. He said, I think we'll try it. So I think the festivals kind of stem from that.
Yeah.
There's quite a few of them now.
Yeah.
Yes. I know I worked a festival up in Maine last year. An awful lot of people. That's good territory up in the New England states for bluegrass music. You wouldn't think it would be, but it definitely is. We had people feel full of them up there, And you'd be surprised at the people that like bluegrass music in that part of the country up there. I enjoy it, and it's pretty country through the New England states. I have a thing that I'm going to do in Tucson, Arizona in September. Yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Is that festival type thing, Hylo, in Tucson?
They're going to try one. Yeah. Yeah, they're going to try. They're going to try a festival, and I'm kind of looking forward to that.
Sure, you want to go on Hylo, we want the people to be aware of some of the awards that you've received, and
Okay.
I'm sure they're a lot less than you should have received.
Well, I appreciate what I have got.
But if you would be good enough to describe.
Oh yeah, we got this. This was presented to me from the Big Apple Hoedown Committee here in Paintsville, Kentucky, at the Apple Festival. That's a plaque that was presented to me, And we have an apple festival here in my hometown once a year. It runs for about 4 to 5 to sometimes 6 days, you know. And I got to ride in the parade up there on the last apple festival, or the one before the last, 92, I believe this is 92 when they presented me with this plaque. And Mike got to ride with me. We thought about, we rode in an old Oldsmobile. What model was this? I don't remember what model. Huh? No, it's a hardtop, but it's an older model Oldsmobile. It's kind of an antique, but boy, it's in first class shape. We got to ride in that in the parade up there. And like I say, we have an apple festival here once a year, and we have people that come here from all over the world just about to this apple festival. Have thousands of people, and I believe it gets underway maybe about the last weekend in October, don't it?
I think it's the last weekend in October.
Or I don't mean October. I mean the last weekend in August.
No, September.
And it runs into the 1st of September, or it did in 92. And it's pretty close, but anyhow, we have a big apple festival here once a year. And if anybody sees this tape around in the, we are going to put it in some of the museums, right? Bluegrass Hall of Fame and all that kind of stuff. You folks remember us up here in eastern Kentucky at our apple festival we have once a year. People, you'll enjoy it. There's all kinds of activities that go on there during the festival. All kinds of good country and bluegrass music. Just a little bit of everything. So we'd like to invite the folks around over the country to come to our apple festival here.
Hylo, would you do one other thing? Of course, would you describe for us somewhat as to what you have in your little log cabin museum that's in the backdrop behind you there? What do you have in there?
I have a lot of memorabilia and a lot of my album covers and things like that. Things that were collected all over the world, you know, and that we decided to build a little log cabin, but didn't build it big enough. I've got most of my stuff stored in boxes yet. We're going to build a larger one right out here this summer. Museum. We're going to call it the Big Little Museum, I guess. That's what it'll be. This is the Big Little Museum now. Of course, if you want to take some pictures of some things inside, you're welcome to do that. And people are welcome to come and visit me anytime they want to. We will try to have a larger place within the next 6 months for them to come to in case they'd like to stop and say hello, have a cup of coffee. I might be able to make it. You know, it's just me here now alone. I'm kind of an old bachelor. My baby daughter comes in once in a while here and cooks for me, makes me a cup of coffee.
Checks up on you.
That helps me out a little bit, you know. But I'm getting to be a pretty good housekeeper.
Regular Susie homemaker.
Well, thank you, Mr. Hylo Brown, and thank you, Gary Reed, for working with Hylo. We're here at Hylo's home place at River, Kentucky, which is just a few miles north of Paintsville, Kentucky.
Right.
This is on the 14th day of May, 1994, and from the looks of Hylo and the condition that he's in, he looks in good health and spry. I'm sure we'll be seeing him many more years. We hope so.
Thank you, Terry, and thank you, Gary. Good to talk with you.
Enjoyed it.
Gary. You think we got enough that time to go with the other?
We got some good stuff. Yeah,
Here.
we got some good stuff, and we can tie.
Help yourself right in here. Anything you want to ask me about, maybe.
And we can tie this footage together with what's usable out of that other.
I think so.
I think it'd be good. Gary, will you get my cord, please, and trail me a little bit? Come on, get a little bit more footage in here.
To another side.
Sissy,
You want to do another song like in the background or something?
Yeah,
While you're doing this,
yeah. Start us some music.
See what we want to do here.
actually, I think this probably gonna be better than with all those lights I had in here, Gary, before.
Yeah.
We're inside the museum here now. This is where Hylo's got much of his memorabilia. As he said earlier, probably the vast majority of it's still in cartons in Nashville and here in his house and so forth, but he does have in the plans the construction of a larger building which will serve as his museum, and I would highly recommend that people take note and plan and come to view some of this stuff. You can throw about 50 years of history under your belt in 2 or 3 hours of looking around, and also talking with Hylo. As you gather from the video, he's a very personable gentleman and will be more than happy to talk with you and answer questions. So I'd highly recommend that you make plans to come and visit Hylo.
I stare into the window. My mind is miles away. Your face is everywhere I go. I can't live on this way. A red light slows my progress, and then I cross the street. And the only sound that I hear is the shuffle of my feet. I came up to a small cafe and entered into the gloom. I remember how many times we'd sat together in this room.
I believe I remember seeing that hat many a time.
I stumbled blindly in
Black hat.
the street.